During his recent trip to Africa, President Obama unveiled an ambitious new program to bring more electricity to the continent. But the U.S.'s own environmental laws could be making things more complicated.
Access to electricity is fundamental to opportunity in this age.
President Obama speaking in Cape Town, South Africa, about the need to get more of the African continent on the grid.
2/3 of the population in sub-Saharan Africa lacks access to power.
The president's plan, known as Power Africa, would bring $7 billion in U.S. government money to 6 African countries: Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Liberia, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. But there's even more money coming from outside the government, as President Obama said before an audience at a power plant in Tanzania.
Private sector companies have already committed more than $9 billion. And this is just the beginning, because we look forward to even more companies joining this effort.
However, according to the person in charge of the Power Africa initiative, the money comes with some conditions.
Basically, what we're doing is we're putting a large carrot on the table for these host governments, and we're saying to them, if you want to increase the amount of electricity by 1 gigawatt, 2 gigawatts, 400 megawatts, you need to make the following reforms. But we're here to help you. We're not going to necessarily pay for them, but we will help you get the private sector investors. We'll help the private sector have the confidence necessary to invest in your country, but you need to make the commitments.
Hershowitz spoke at a forum on the Power Africa initiative last week at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. He said the Power Africa initiative originated about a year ago after some U.S. policy experts looked at the problems some companies in sub-Saharan Africa were facing.
They weren't able to keep up with their power production. They were burning expensive diesel generators and that were polluting and expensive diesel generators. So they need to come up with a solution.
The U.S. government's role does not require any additional funding from Congress. The government groups include the U.S. Agency for International Development, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, the Export-Import Bank, the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the U.S. African Development Foundation, plus the Departments of Treasury, Commerce, Agriculture, Transportation, and Energy. The State Department is also involved.
In Africa, we're not inheriting the old grid that we have in the United States and other countries. We have opportunities that aren't presented to us in the United States. It's very similar to the cell phone analogy, where most of the countries in the developing world have kind of jumped over landlines, and we're now going to try to do the same thing for power.
However, there could be a problem with the Power Africa initiative's goals and President Obama's climate change policy. For example, one of the development agencies, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, has a self-imposed cap on carbon emissions. Tanzania, for example, where the president spoke at the power plant, has plenty of natural gas, especially offshore. And even though natural gas has less carbon pollution than diesel or coal, it's still a fossil fuel and would still increase emissions. There is talk of making exceptions to the carbon cap rule for the poorest countries receiving U.S. development aid, but so far, no final action has been taken.